For the long layered haircut, you'll be using the same mannequin that you used for your blunt haircut, so we're not going to worry about the bottom of the haircut because we have already finished that in our blunt haircut. Let's begin by sectioning your mannequin into 5 sections with 1 on the top, 1 for each side, and splitting the back into 2 equal sections. We're doing a long layer haircut with this mannequin, and we're going to be working with, initially we're working with a movable guideline. So with the blunt haircut, we had a stationary guideline where we brought all the hair to the guideline. Now we're moving the guideline as we go. So in this whole front panel, we're going to be having the hair all pulled up so that it comes at the same level here. So we're going to take our first section in the front, just dealing with the top panel first. And I'm going to take my section, again a nice clean section, about 1 centimeter is perfect. The neater you can be with your sections, the better. The fatter these sections are, the less even you're going to be able to get them with the scissors. It's just not going to be as nice of a cut. So for this haircut, you're going to have to judge how long your particular mannequin is, but I'm going to go up here and I'm going to take off about 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches up top, okay? So I'm combing this straight up and I'm going to cut about 2 inches off on the top. Now remember, when you're cutting with your scissors, you don't want to be cutting past your second knuckle, because that's when you can start cutting your knuckles quite on accident. But you'll see many hairstylists have quite a bit of scissor scars, usually on their knuckles from cutting past their second knuckle. So now that I have this piece of hair cut, this is my movable guideline. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my next section of hair, about 1 centimeter. I'm combing it straight up from the base. So the section I'm working with is going straight up from the base, and this original guideline that I have here, it is going to move to my new section. So it's always straight up from the original piece that you've taken, and my original guideline is going to stretch back and it's going to move back. That's why it's a movable guideline. So when you're in here, make sure you can always see your original guideline. Don't start cutting until you are confident that you see your original guideline. Cut that hair exactly on that guide. Not cutting past your second knuckle. Checking to make sure it's even. And now you're going to move back to the next section. Just to make this even, I'm going to take out, or just to make sure that I'm doing this as neat as possible, I'm going to take out my first guideline and only work with the guideline, my second guideline from my section. So I'm going to be taking an extra centimeter of hair, nice and neat from the scalp. You want to be able to see those nice clean sections. You should be able, at this level, you've been doing this for quite a few years now, to be able to see a nice clean section at the roots. Should never be messy. You should always be able to comb it from the root to the top. And now remember, this is a movable guideline. The hair is coming straight up from my new section that I took, and that last guideline is moving back. Okay? So I'm going to hold this straight up. Make sure you can always see your guideline. And then cut the hair exactly to that guide. Okay. And then I'll just take my new guideline, section out my old one, take a new section of hair, about 1 centimeter, hold it straight up from the new section so that the old section is moving back. Holding it straight up, making sure you can see your guideline, and cutting exactly to that guideline. As always with your haircuts, make sure that as that hair gets dry that you're continually spraying it. I'm going section out my old guideline, just take my new guideline with me. Take about 1 centimeter of new hair. Comb it straight up. Make sure you can see your guideline and cut exactly to your guideline. Okay. Continue doing that all the way to the back of this first section. If ever you lose your guideline, go back to your section before where you did have it and continue from there. Go back to where you can find it and continue pulling up sections from there. If you're doing this during your work experience, you can ask your work experience stylist to help you find your guideline if you lost it. But don't keep cutting if you've lost it. You always need to have that guideline with you. If you don't have it, then you're just blindly cutting the hair, and then who knows what it's going to turn out like in the end. And then our last section. Then what we're going to do after we do this last section of hair is we are going to cross-check. I don't have a ton of hair to cut there. So before we move on, we're going to cross-check. So we cut this hair, doing our sections coming so that they were straight with us. Now we're going to turn the mannequin, and if you have done this haircut correctly, or pardon me, I shouldn't say correctly, if you have followed your guideline throughout this whole thing, when you do a cross-check, so you're taking your sections perpendicular to what your original ones were, hold this hair straight up. You don't have to hold all of that in your hand. You should be able to hold it straight up, and it should be even. Straighten that a little bit. If when you hold this hair straight up it's not even, or maybe there's a little tiny jagged piece, that's where you can snip it off here. But this is where you're checking. Your haircut should be even with checking it in 2 different sections. So it's even that way, we're good. This is where if you had not followed your guideline in here, this line would not be straight, okay? So make sure you cross-check through your haircut to make sure it is straight, because this is the guideline we're using for the rest of the haircut. Okay? And I'm just going to check in the front. So these sections I took were perpendicular to the last section. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to move over into our side panels. I can see that our hair is drying out, so I'm just going to re-wet it here. And what we're going to use for these side panels is we're going to use a stationary guideline now. So for this stationary guideline, I'm just going to take about 1 centimeter, 1 or 2 centimeter thickness of hair. And that is going to be my stationary guideline for the entire side of this haircut. So when I'm in here, make sure your mannequin is straight up. Her head is tilted straight up. This is going to be my guideline for the sides. So I'm going to take this section of hair and I'm going to comb it straight up, and this is now a stationary guideline. Everything comes up to that original guideline. So make sure you can see that original guideline. Cut exactly to it. Don't cut past your second knuckle. And keep taking those sections, taking that 1 or 2 centimeter section, combing it up to your guideline and snipping those hairs off. Eventually with this particular haircut, especially with this haircut, especially with this mannequin, knowing how long we cut it, you'll notice eventually no more hair even reaches up to the guideline, which is good. Then you know you haven't cut into your length anyway. But we're coming straight up to this, and there's no more hair that's even reaching up, so then you won't be cutting for part of that. And again, when we finish that side, we still have to cross-check that side. So we took horizontal sections and brought them straight up. In order to cross-check, we're going to take vertical sections and we're going to hold them out, and we should still have a straight line when we do this cross-check. Make sure you're combing the hair nice and even at the roots. Should be combed smooth from root to end. And when I get up to this end piece in here, I should be able to see a nice straight line this way. If there's a couple stray hairs in there, go right ahead and trim them off. But you'll know you've done a straight haircut if when you cross-check the other way, vertically, you have a nice straight line in there. Okay? And there's no point for us in bringing the bottom part up. It never reached our first line anyway, but we cross-checked with vertical sections and we should have a straight line there as well. Okay? So we're going to move to the other side and do the exact same thing to the other side. Okay, we're in our back section now, and still we're using some of our top section. This is going to be used for our stationary guideline. So I'm going to take out as much of the hair as I need here. About a 1-inch section from the top. That's going to be my guideline. And I'm going to hold this hair straight up. I'm going to take a section, a nice clean section from the back, and we're going to hold that part straight up, and we should be able to see our guideline. Okay, I can see the guideline is very faint, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take more hair out just to get it a little bit thicker in there. There, now I can see my guideline a little bit better. And actually not a lot of the hair actually reaches up to the guideline, so this will probably be a rather simple cut here, because this isn't meeting, this isn't coming up to the guideline, not very much of it is. Okay, we're going to go up and there's just a few little hairs coming to the guideline, and that's what we're going to do all the way around, still stationary guideline. And we're going to comb that straight up. Just a few little hairs aren't making it to that guideline. Over, and we'll just keep taking out nice clean sections and bringing it all to that original stationary guideline. So hopefully you're seeing the difference between a stationary guideline and a movable guideline. The stationary guideline, you bring all of the hair to the guideline. And a movable guideline is you move the guideline to the hair. Okay. Make sure you can comb through that hair. Make sure you can see your guideline, and then just trim the hair. I don't think even on these last few sections any of this last hair even reached to the top. So I can, as soon as it stops reaching, I can probably stop pulling that hair up. Yeah, there's no extra hairs there that are even reaching, so that section is done. I'll just continue over on this side. And we should be done fairly soon here as well. So I don't think much of this hair is going to reach up to that original guideline. Okay, and before we leave any section we've just completed, we have to make sure that we go through and do a cross check. And I'm actually going to take the sides out here and do a cross check as well to make sure that those areas from the back to the side are blended as well. If there's going to be any area where you're having a little bit of trouble, it may be in those blending areas from the side to the ear. I do want to caution you when you are going through and doing a cross check to make sure that you're taking very small sections on your cross check and that your hair is neat. It's a neat section right from the bottom, because I can't tell you how many students go through and they do their cross check, but in the cross check they haven't combed the hair smooth, and when the hair's not combed smooth, it looks like they have a crooked haircut, so they go in and they fix it. When really they had a nice clean haircut, they just took a sloppy section of hair to check. So make sure you're taking nice clean sections in your cross check to make sure that that hair is even. And you'll want to make sure in those blending sections right here between the side and the back that those sections blend as well. And if you'll notice when you hold it out, you will have a corner in here. You will have a bit of a point, a corner. That's the weight that's coming down here on the bottom when we did our blunt cut. Don't cut that corner off or you're going to take off some of the weight down in here. Okay? So before we leave this haircut, we're going to take all the hair out, and the one thing we want to make sure is in the front, around the perimeter, that this is going to fall nicely for our client in the front. We're going to take that hair down. I'm just going to part it in the middle. I'm going to assume that's where my client wants it parted, is in the middle. You can take it off to the side as well. And I'm just going to check those perimeter layers. When this hair falls, yeah, we've got still a nice straight line coming down in here. We've got a nice even line, so we're okay in there. She is going to have a slightly, because you can see her hairline comes forward and then back. So when we do comb that hairline forward, you will see that you may have a bit of it's a little bit longer and then it goes shorter, a little curve up in there. That's the curve from up in the hairline. And I don't think you're going to notice too much about that. And that is your long layered haircut.